welcome to the Week 8 edition of the Thursday Night Tailgate. Thanks again for joining us. We've gotten a lot of feedback on our structure of the show last week, so we want to thank you guys, whether it was on Facebook or Twitter or email, letting us know what you thought about our new format. So if you're watching this segment of the show, it's posted Wednesday night, so hopefully you're catching us Wednesday night. It'll give you a chance to get caught up on Week 7 action. What we're going to do this week is similar to last week. We're going to wrap up Week 7, talk about all the games, including our big game of the week with Mahanoy Area Golden Bears at Jim Thorpe Olympians. And then we're going to come back a Thursday night and take a look at the Week 8 preview. We're back at home base after being on location the last few weeks, and who would have thought Week 8 we'd be here in shorts, beautiful weather. You might see some bikers, hikers, four-wheelers behind us, but hey, it's great weather right now, so we decided to come back outside and enjoy it. So first we're going to look at the non-league contest. Let's take a look at Blue Mountain at Schuylkill Valley. Blue Mountain, big win for them. They won 31-28 and improves Blue Mountain's record to 3-4. Blue Mountain, as a matter of fact, was up 24-7. Schuylkill Valley came back, took the lead 28-24. Blue Mountain came back and ended up winning the game. Big game for Blue Mountain.
Yeah, it's nice to see Blue Mountain get a big win because it definitely keeps their playoff hopes alive. We're not sure if it's Eastern Conference or District yet, but it keeps them alive. And they were up big. Schuylkill Valley was at home. They come back. They take the lead. And then a name we mentioned last week, Graspy threw a touchdown pass to Greenewalt with under a minute left. And you're going to see the theme come up with the next game we're going to talk about.
Sure.
Schuylkill Valley got the ball, drove all the way down the field, and the game ended inches short of the goal line with Schuylkill Valley, being held by Blue Mountain's defense. So, I mean, it was one of those bend but don't breaks, and, they got a huge win there, 31-28, so that's awesome. Good for them.
Yeah.
And their schedule's very favorable for the rest of the year. They can win some games and look at some postseason, meaningful games in Week 11 where all coaches love.
Yeah, you look at, they have a big win early in the year against Jim Thorpe. That's one of their wins, and we said at the time that we thought that was a big win. Some people disagreed at the time, didn't think it was that big of a win, but as we've seen from there on out, Jim Thorpe's certainly the real deal. So Blue Mountain, staying the course and getting a big win. Moving on with our non-league games, we got Allen at Lehighton. Lehighton, they really took care of business this week. Huge win for them. They upped their record of 4-3. Lehighton jumped on top early, and it was a huge win for them, 55-8.
Yeah, earlier in the year we got some feedback from the Lehighton people, and they said, you need to talk about us more. I know we're not in the league yet, but can you mention us more? And it seems like every week we spend a lot of time talking about their game. This week it's going to be short, though. Sorry, Lehighton fans, but a 55-8 game. You took care of business, and that's what you had to do. And we'll just briefly mention something. The Tylers, quick scores from Can to Crumb early on. Lehighton capitalized on a couple fumbles early, and it was 19-0 with 6 minutes left in the first quarter, and they just ran away with the game. But they had to do that. That's the difference, I think, between this year's Lehighton team and last year's. Last year's got upset by Allen. This year they go down there. Allen comes up to Lehighton, get their first home win, and they just take care of business. So great job.
Yeah, Coach McCarroll, as he said in the paper, very happy with just the overall team effort, and good for them because we've been mentioning Can and Crom a lot, and Rizika, but according to Coach McCarroll, total team effort this week against Allen. A lot of guys seeing meaningful playing time, so good job on their part improving to 4-3. All right, we got one more non-league game. It has an AFL team in there, but it was a non-league contest. North Schuylkill at Mount Carmel. Boy, always a big game, always an interesting game. We thought it was going to be interesting, and it certainly was. At the end of the third, it was 6-6. North Schuylkill takes the lead late with about a minute left, just under a minute. Yeah. But Mount Carmel comes back, and I think they had a short field to play with there at the end.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this, and this is what I was talking about before with Blue Mountain. It seemed like a similar type game. Under a minute left, North Schuylkill takes the lead. And this is one of those things as a coach. What do? You take the lead. Do you kick it deep? Do you squib it? Do you do this, do that? All week you practice kicking deep. And they come out and they try to squib it, and it turns into almost like an onside kick. Mount Carmel jumps on it. They got a short field. We said this was going to be a tight game, and it was. It always is a tight game. So, I mean, they get the short field there. Mount Carmel gets the ball, and they make things happen.
Yeah, and going back a little bit for North Schuylkill, Tevin Murray, just a sophomore, 5 catches, 118 yards, big game. But the real story of the game was North Schuylkill had 160 yards total and 40 rushes for 19 yards. And there you're talking an option attack, 19 total yards. You can't have that. We talked all year about North Schuylkill needing balance and then take care of the ball, and the balance wasn't there yet again. In their losses, there was no balance. In their wins, there's a lot of balance. But at the end of the game, and here's a guy I can relate to. All right, in my playing career, a long time ago, I had 2 career catches. Coach Cramps, you might remember them. They weren't very memorable catches, but Joe Dormer, I can relate to this guy because he's never had a catch in a varsity game. But you know what? His first one, he made the most of it. Scores the game-winning touchdown with 12 seconds left in the game. So that's awesome. Joe Dormer, big score. They end up, 19-13, game-winning score in a huge rivalry. North Schuylkill, from what I understand, this is their game. I've seen that game on film a lot of time, the red on red, and it's just an exciting game. It's always packed. And for Joe Dormer to come up big like that, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, obviously a catch he's going to remember the rest of his life. And Silver Bowl, tough place to play. And the matchup's always interesting because of the difference in opponents that these teams are playing. And, it seems like regardless of the record, regardless how they're doing outside in their own leagues, you put these squads together and it's always an exciting game. It's always a nail-biter. This year, no different. North Schuylkill drops them down to 4-3. So makes things interesting for them. This is not a position they're used to being in after, at this point in the season after 7 games.
Yeah, that's a tough loss. I mean, anytime you lose to your rival, it's a tough loss. But, you look at the playoff picture, too. Last week they had a big win over Tamaqua, and now they come back this week and kind of knocks that back down. And they got their work cut out for them.
Yep.
Okay, next, Minersville at Marian. Marian, speaking of North Schuylkill, boy, you talk about a defining moment in a season. Marian, a few weeks ago, they're 0-3, staring down at North Schuylkill. And let's face it, everyone had North Schuylkill pegged to win that game at that point. Marian comes up with a huge win, and they've been rolling 6 since. Marian takes care of business against Minersville. They win their 4th in a row. They were up 43-0 in the 3rd, which they're able to clear the bench with some of the injuries that they've had. I'm sure they're happy to get some of those guys a rest and give some of their younger crew a chance to play. So Marian keeps it rolling against Minersville.
Yeah, we were worried not worried, but we were talking last week about who's going to step up. KJ Snur's out for the season. Lucas Damien, 1, 2, 3 weeks, we don't know. We knew he wasn't playing last week. And the person that stepped up was Anthony Augusti. Another senior leader, a great young man. I know him, and just a great athlete. Marion's offense had 338 yards. Dean Richards quarterbacked for them, had a solid game, 2 TDs for them. So it was one of those where maybe, okay, their best player, Lucas Damien, was down, but they got, an effort from a couple guys, like Augusti, like Richards, and I hope we're saying this right, Kaczynski with a big touchdown run for Marian, and that's what you need. I said this earlier in the year. Injuries are tough for coaches to deal with and tough for teams to deal with, but they're also opportunities for other people, and some guys stepped up for Marian.
Right, one thing, speaking of injuries, I'll take Coach Clancy's transitions here. Okay? Speaking of injuries,
we learned from the best.
It was nice to see Luke Heffron come back.
Yeah,
absolutely.
From what I understand, reading it in the paper, he's not 100%. Kid's a senior, one of the only seniors Minersville has. They said he was out heavily bandaged. He got a couple carries, couple yards, and they said in the 3rd quarter he was done for the night. But I mean, as a senior, that's tough. You come out, you get banged up. I'm glad to see he's back. Hopefully he continues to get healthier, and he's got 3 weeks left of his senior year.
And very winnable games on the schedule. They got Carson Long, they got Panther Valley, they got I think Tamaqua.
Right. They got 3 games they can get there. So I mean, it's nice to see him back. Another kid, junior David Schultz, got a touchdown and about 50 yards rushing for Minersville. So it seemed like his first time all year that Minersville came out. They've been hanging tough, and they get worn down. Seemed like they fell behind right away, and it was just too much for them. They're not a team that's going to come from behind. You get down 20, 25 points. You got to stay in the game and, build a lead there.
Yeah, that's a tough spot to be in, especially with the way Marian's been playing the last few weeks. I mean, boy, they got that momentum rolling early, and that's that's a tough train to slow down, you know, when you have that momentum going over the last few weeks and into that game.
And confidence.
Absolutely, absolutely. Heffron, like you said, fantastic to see him back. You know, hope he gets healthier each week. And Dusty, I mentioned him before their game against PV that I thought the next day, if we looked at the paper and Auguste had a big game, you know, that meant the Marian win, which, you know, Auguste's a kid that somehow I think might be getting lost in the shuffle a little bit as far as what we're talking about. I think, you know, with the injuries they've had, especially the turnstile at the quarterback position tends to be the focal point. And when you talk about them, who's quarterbacking this week? Is it Stir? Is it Lucas? Is it, you know, Richards this week? And, you know, Auguste, the kid brings it every week, and he's a playmaker. You know, another huge game for him. And I think if Marian's going to keep this rolling, that's the constant that they're going to need. You know, they have a tough defense. It's going to be there. But, you know, if Auguste can keep giving them games like this, what do they have, 150 yards, 3 TDs?
3 TDs, yep.
You know, that makes them a lot better. It really does. Okay, next. PV's homecoming game. Shenandoah at PV. And this was one that obviously we were interested in, being PV guys, but also from you know, from a standpoint of the actual game, it's two teams, you know, hungry for a win. Two teams that I'm sure we're looking forward to this particular week, thinking that, you know, this is one we can get. And it was a very exciting game. PV comes out on top, 34-21. They improve to 2-5. Shenandoah drops to 1-6, and this one really a tale of two halves. You know, Shenandoah struck early. PV down at halftime, hung tough, and made some huge plays in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this game. Coach Maximic said it in the paper. He said, we played well, but Ferryman and Ace were just too much. He said they're great athletes. Kyle Ferryman, again, 17 carries, 172 yards, 94-yard touchdown run. I think that's the longest touchdown run since Brian DeJosio had a 96-yarder back in 1998.
Absolutely. And you remember? Because you were there.
I was part of the team. Eastern Conference team.
I didn't know you were going to bring that up. I texted Kyle that this week.
I think that's the longest one since then. I don't remember one since then that long. So.
No, it is. It is.
But the point that came in was huge. It was 28-21. PV was up. Shenandoah was driving. PV stopped them on downs. There was like 3-4 minutes left. They were backed up. Kyle pops a 94-yarder, puts them up 34-21. Richard Nace, 17 carries, 123 yards. He had a 56-yard touchdown run. But I think the big story here with PV, you know, you pick up the paper every week, it's Ferryman and Ace, Ferryman and Ace. You know, they won this game because of defense, you know, making plays.
Opportunistic.
You know, Dylan Moyer had an interception return.
Kyle Emmert.
And Kyle Emmert, you know, Shenandoah had some trouble there with their snaps. And they snapped the ball over the punter's head. You know, Kyle Emmert, a sophomore, gets a scoop and score. You know, and on the other side of the ball, PV all year has been having trouble stopping teams running the ball.
And you keep saying that. Until they stop someone running the ball, they're going to keep running it. And it was huge for them.
Shenandoah, I mean, and every week it seems like, you know, Elijah Nye has, you know, a 100-yard game or close to it. The whole team had 3 yards this week. So, hey, hats off to PV's defense. You know, they tightened up when they had to, and they got it done.
Absolutely, absolutely. And going back, you know, last week we said they gotta get more production from some more people. We need names. I mentioned Mahalik. I mentioned C. Clark.
Yeah, I missed Mahalik.
And,
he had a touchdown.
Yeah, Anthony Mahalik with the touchdown, the first one I believe of the game for them. Mm-hmm. But never did I anticipate that. You know, maybe they're watching this at home and say we gotta step up our production, and they decided to do on the defensive end because. Dylan Moyer, who's a very nice athlete, you know, we got to coach him last year as a freshman. He's a sophomore this year, picks that play off and did some nifty running afterwards. And then, like you said, Emmert. So they kind of took it into their own hands and you know, produced some points. But again, going back to Kyle, I want to go back to Kyle football because this week I decided for our Black Diamond Performance of the Week, we're going to split it into two. It's never been done before, but it's our show. We can do what we want. So, yeah, half of the Black Diamond Performance this week is from Kyle Ferryman. 17 carries, 172 yards, the big 94-yard touchdown. Just huge. I got to talk to Kyle this week. He had a tough week this week, dealing with an injury and some other things, and just a great young man, and he responded when PV needed him for a big homecoming win.
Actually, absolutely. I mean, congrats, Kyle, and great job on Friday night. Shenandoah, a lot of big performances from them as well, and a lot of the usual suspects that we've been talking about. McCall, the kid's gonna. I shouldn't say he's gonna be good. He is good. Kid's a player. The quarterback for Shenandoah, and
rarely do you throw for 328 and lose.
Yeah,
and 2 touchdowns.
Marnell, 10 catches.
Yeah,
over 120 yards. Mascornik, another big game. What Mascornik have?
Your boy Kay and Herb,
my
basketball
boy,
guy. You know,
yeah, a lot of multi-sport athletes, boy. As we go through these names, I love it. Coach Davis being baseball as well, and Coach McArdle being a track guy in addition. And of course, me with basketball, I love seeing all these guys that are doing it in multiple sports, and there's a bunch of them out there that we're talking about now. So, a lot of big performances from Shenandoah as well. PV came up with some big plays late. As a result, they get the big W. Moving on to our honorable mention game of the week. Big game early in the year, I should say. We had this one circled as, this is one of the games of the year, and certainly our game of the week. Turned it out to be our honorable mention game of the week coming in. Tamaqua at Schuylkill Haven. Tamaqua, they're back to 4-3, and they took care of business, 32-14 at Schuylkill Haven. Tyler Hope. Boy, a couple weeks ago, I mentioned Dylan Maymod's video game-like numbers. Yeah. Boy, these are video game-like numbers. These are like Bo Jackson and Tecmo Bowl numbers right here for Tyler Hope.
For the young guys out there, Google Bo Jackson.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
But I was watching Friday Night Football this week with Mark McKeon and Big Game Lou Rusnak, and they mentioned that Tyler Hope had Robbie Fry-like numbers from Lehighton a few years ago. But I prefer to say that Tyler had his uncle Jim Hope-like numbers. His dad Bob and Jim are brothers, and we were old enough, when we were in high school and playing. Jimmy Hope used to put up 300-yard games for Tamaqua, and to see those numbers, 350, 4 TDs, scores on runs of 53, 79, and 91, in addition to a 2-yard plunge. That's pretty
what
impressive.
happened? 2 yards? Come on.
He should have ran backwards.
53, 79, 91, and 2.
And boy, not to disparage any other teams, Schuylkill Haven, doing this against Schuylkill Haven, at Schuylkill Haven. I mean, that's as impressive as it gets. When you talk about the defenses traditionally in the Ampersand League over the last how many years?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And you know what? When you do that against a Haven, that's how you earn the other half of the Black Diamond performance of the week. Obviously, Tyler Hope had to be in the mix somehow. So Tyler Hope and Kyle Ferryman this week's Black Diamond performances for separate big games when their teams needed it.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at this game, this was our honorable mention game. Earlier in the year, we thought this was going to be a huge game. Kind of got downgraded a little bit with a couple losses by both teams here and there. This is the first time Haven really got a dose of their own medicine.
Yep.
You look at the numbers that Hope put up, and that's what Casella's been doing the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
And he still had big numbers, 26 for 182, 2 TDs.
Right, so Casella still had a strong game, but, Hope took the game over. I mean, you looked at the box score after this game, there wasn't a whole lot else in there. It was kind of more like so Haven got a dose of their own medicine. And right now, I mean, for districts, which their goal this year was, districts and district title, they got to win out.
Yep.
And they got a huge game this week, which we'll talk about later, but their backs are against the wall, and, hey, look, we're going to see what that team is made of. Fink still hasn't played in a few weeks. I'm hoping, you hate seeing that.
You do.
Get in there and play, and, I mean, I'm sure if he could be, he would be. He's not going to be like Gronkowski, but seriously, I mean, you got to feel bad for the kid and get in there and, let's see what they can do.
Yeah, you would hope. I mean, for, a kid that works so hard, and you guys, had the opportunity to talk to a lot of those kids up at the Jungle, and, the kind of work those guys put in. Tyler Hope, I'm assuming he's healthy. I know he dealt with some issues, but if this is what a healthy Tyler Hope can do, you got to like Tamaqua's chances, for the next 3 weeks. They could obviously beat anyone in any given night if he's, healthy and able to perform, the way he's capable of.
Absolutely. Hey, before we go on, did I see it right? Did Haven throw 16 passes this week?
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I saw
I really
that,
did.
All that trick play stuff we talked about, but they got down early, so they had to come back a little bit.
They had to try some more.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just been, sick of you calling them out for their trick plays.
That's
one
what it is.
or the other.
I'm sorry.
Okay, next, our game of the week. 2 undefeated AFL teams brought us to Harry's Barbershop at Jim Thorpe last week.
Which was awesome.
Great
place.
time. Everybody in town was pumped about the game, and it's a game that we all got to see. For first place in the Anthracite Football League, and I don't want to, bust anybody, to my right or left here. But I think when we started talking about the game, I might be the one that gave Thorpe a slight edge. I don't know. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's about right.
I think so.
I think he ambushed us. we weren't expecting. I can't believe I sat in a barbershop in Jim Thorpe at Harris Barbershop and picked against the Olympians.
How didn't you have your jersey on last week?
I know. I have no luck with the Olympians this year. But
Well, I'm sure Jim Thorpe is sitting there saying, Coach McConnell, please continue to pick against us, because every time you've done that, they've done pretty well. But RS2, what can I say? He's my hardcore performer of the week. They say big players make big plays in big games. It was the biggest game of the week. He made the biggest plays of the week, and it's something he's been doing all year long. Who would have thought that after the year Davigno had the All-State campaign that Davigno had, that somebody could come in and equal or top that, and that's exactly what RS2 is doing. Extremely impressive. Jim Thorpe, it was no score in the second quarter. Jim Thorpe goes on a run. RS2 makes a couple big plays. Mahanoy area tries to go 70 yards I believe it was the last minute or so. Leads to a pick. Jim Thorpe punches another one in. All of a sudden, Jim Thorpe's going into halftime. Huge momentum. They're up 20-0. Some of those plays that RS2 made were just fantastic, including that backbreaker before the half.
Yeah, you look at this game, and we talked about it last week. Mahanoy was the top scoring offense in the state.
Yep.
Dylan Maymod's numbers have been off the charts. And Jim Thorpe's defense was phenomenal. They really were. And for that reason, they are my Cole Cracker Defensive Players of the Week, the Jim Thorpe defensive unit. I mean, Mahanoy was averaging 52 points a game.
Yep.
They got held to 79 yards. And, 13 in the first half. So, it's just, you watch the game, and it was a domination. It really was.
It was. You look at the offensive end, RS2, you look at his numbers. 26 carries, 235 yards, 3 touchdown runs, and a TD pass. You throw that in with the defensive performance that they threw up there, and that's about as a complete game as Jim Thorpe could have possibly hoped for against the other undefeated team in the league.
Right, and I would love to be able to pull out a single guy from Jim Thorpe's defense, say this kid really, it was everybody.
The Swarm.
The Swarm might be back. The Red Swarm, is that red?
That's orange, but close enough.
Okay, close enough. But, the Red Swarm, I think they're back. But honestly, though, there's one kid that kind of stood out defensively for me, and I want to give him a plug, and it's Mike Ronsky from Mahanoy area.
Yeah, he was all over.
He was all over the field the entire night. The kid's only a sophomore. So, kudos to him. He had a great game. He's only a sophomore. You see sophomores making plays on Friday nights, and they stand out like that in a big game. They got a very bright future. So good luck and stay healthy.
Absolutely. But the story was Jim Thorpe's defense.
Yeah.
We would have said last week, Jim Thorpe, it'll be a victory for the Jim Thorpe D if they hold Mahanoy to 24 points. And to shut them out, which is great assignment football. I watched it on TV. The dive man was tackled every play. The quarterback was accounted for. We didn't have DNs go flying after the dive man or out of position for the pitch man. The outside backers in the corners were on the pitch man. It was just nice assignment defense, which you need against an option team. And Mahanoy, it was the old punch the champion in the face type of thing. In boxing, once you hit them, then they're going to be on their heels, and that's what happened. Once Mahanoy went through an entire half without scoring a point, I think they kind of panicked a little bit.
Right.
And that's what we play the games for. That's why the atmosphere was unbelievable, and Jim Thorpe was packed on Friday night for that game.
Yeah, and I think Jim Thorpe's experience in these types of games, came through a little bit. Some of the adversity they faced against North Schuylkill, and that was one of the things that leading up to this game. I kind of thought the competition that Jim Thorpe had kind of prepared them a little.
And even a loss,
more.
experiencing a loss,
absolutely
helped them against Blue Mountain.
You look at that, and it's funny because it's the first time all year Mahanoy's, went in a half, and they were down 20-0. But I mean, all of those points that Thorpe scored in the first half were in the last 4 minutes of the half. It was 0-0 with 4 minutes to go in the half.
Yep.
And then it just kind of snowballed a little bit. And I mean, you guys know, you go into halftime when the other team goes on a little bit of a run there. You know,
Especially scoring with 2 seconds left. You're down 2 touchdowns, and then with 2 seconds left, you're down 3 touchdowns. That's huge.
It is. You know, one team's running in the locker room, hooting and hollering and high-fiving.
and they're at home. You're on the road.
Yeah, the home crowd's going nuts, and you saw that Friday night.
Yep.
You know, as much as you say keep your head up, that's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow when you get hit with that barrage. So looking at the league standings now, Jim Thorpe sitting at the top of the league, 6-0. You got Mahanoy area, they're at 4-1. Haven, North Schuylkill, both 4-2. So those are the teams that we're looking at right now at the top. Marion's 3-2, and then we have in the bottom half we got Tamaqua 2-3, Shendo 1-5, PV 1-4, Minersville 0-6. So things are getting interesting. Jim Thorpe obviously controls their destiny now after that big win.
Yeah, we weren't talking before. We're not sure how the tiebreaker works. You would think it would be head-to-head, but
I think if it's 2 teams, it's head-to-head. If it's 3 teams, then they split it.
right. So if Jim Thorpe wins, that guarantees them at worst they'd be 7-1. And the only other team with 1 loss is Mahanoy. So if Mahanoy would win out head-to-head, you would think Jim Thorpe, if they win this one this week, you would think they're league champs. But like I said, we're not sure the rules there with the league. But
We'll find out for next week.
yeah, we will definitely. We'll check in on that.
All right, a lot of big games this past week, a lot of exciting action, a lot of players stepping up, making big plays. That is our Week 7 recap. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to take a look at Week 8's games.